For the public record, we have cabinet members present in the room. We're going to have some introductions in a bit, as well as a number of senior officers and some non-cabinet members are joining us online, and additional officers are also joining the meeting virtually. So I have a note of attendees and speakers, but if any virtual councillors wish to speak, they should indicate with the yellow hand icon, and this will be picked up in the meeting. The meeting is being streamed live and recorded by the council for subsequent broadcast via the council's internet site. So if I can ask cabinet members to introduce themselves, state their portfolio, and this is for the benefit of viewers watching online, and when any other speakers do speak, if they can introduce themselves before they speak. In fact, I'll start with myself. So Councillor Perai Ahmet, leader of the council.
I'm the next one. Adam Jogi, economic development, jobs and community cohesion.
Councillor Seema Chandwani, Cabinet Member for Tackling Inequality and Resident Services.
Councillor Lucia Desneves, Cabinet Member of Health, Social Care and Wellbeing.
Zena Brabazon, Cabinet Member, Children, Schools and Families.
Councillor Ruth Gordon, Cabinet Member for Council House Building, Placemaking and Development.
Councillor Donna Carlin, Cabinet Member for Housing Services, Private Renters and Planning.
Mike Hakata, Deputy Leader and Cabinet Member for Climate Action, Environment and Transport.
Okay, we've got some slight technical problems on the left side of the room, so if there's any rustling on the mics, that's the situation. Apologies, I believe we have apologies from Councillors Williams and Davis tonight. Any urgent business? No urgent business. Is there any declarations of interest? Do any cabinet members wish to declare anything? No. So item 5, which is the notice of intention to conduct business in private. This agenda contains exempt items as set out at item 17, exclusion of the press and public, and there were no representations received at the agenda publication stage in relation to these exempt items. So if we can go to item 6, which is the minutes, can we confirm and agree the minutes of the meeting held on the 6th of December 2020 as a correct record? Item 7, deputation, petitions, questions. There have been no deputations, petitions or questions received tonight. Item 8, matters referred to Cabinet by the Overview and Scrutiny Committee. There are no items to consider tonight. So if we can move to item 9, adoption of the corporate delivery plan. And I believe I'm introducing the report. And I'm as prepared as you can all tell. So, sorry. So I have great pleasure in introducing the corporate delivery plan tonight. Since the elections in May and my re-election as leader of the council, I've been clear they're 3 watchwords for my administration. That's collaborative, competent and radical. And together with our residents, I've been really clear, and my administration is really clear, that I want us to build a fairer and greener borough. The corporate delivery plan will set out how we go about putting these words into practice between now and April 2024. There's some ambitious and radical actions on house building and tackling climate change, and we are determined to support our under 5s and do our best for our children and young people, in particular those with additional needs. As we're all aware, we're in the middle of a cost of living crisis, and we've committed to significant expenditure in our public realm to ensure that Haringey is a great place to live and spend time. So we are unapologetic about the detailed nature of this document because its main audience is the council itself and our staff. This is essentially our to-do list, and these are our commitments we'll be making to deliver over the next 18 months, and we will be absolutely transparent about our progress. So there's recommendations here, and the cabinet colleagues are asked to agree the corporate delivery plan for 2022 to 2024, which is attached at Appendix 1. Now I'm chairing the meeting as well and just introducing. So does anyone have any questions for me or any of the officers present? It's because you've asked me lots of questions in advance. Councillor Carlin, go ahead.
Could you explain the steps that will, just how we will be monitoring the plan? For the
Okay.
delivery of the plan?
Yeah. Jess, can I ask you to just say a bit about the monitoring of the plan? Jess, that's fine.
Oh, that one's working. Yeah. Oh, no, they're both working. Pressing the wrong button. Apologies for that. Jess Crowe, Director of Cultural Strategy and Engagement. The processes for monitoring and reporting this are really important because this is a delivery plan. So we'll be developing a sort of a detailed rhythm of reporting, both to members of Cabinet and to overview and scrutiny as well, and updating and refreshing our performance metrics and key performance indicators that we would then also be publishing in order to be fully transparent. But we would expect that the kind of commitments that are at high level in this corporate delivery plan would be reflected in more detail in individual team service plans, and then all the way through to staff appraisals, so that all of the commitments that are in here are clearly, there are clear owners at officer level, and that would be cascaded through the team. So we would expect this to be, this is our watchword for what we'll deliver over the next 18 months, and it'll become part of everybody's business that we can report in and monitor in a range of ways through performance management, and then all the way through to public reporting and challenge by members.
Thank you, Jess. Any more questions from the Cabinet? No, has Councillor Emery joined us? Okay, Councillor Emery, you have a question?
Yes, I do. Can you all hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Super, thank you. Many of the metrics used to measure the success say increase in or number of, but none of the actual quantities are attached. And I was just wondering, were the numbers being added at a later date, or an increase of, for instance, 1 gully clean per annum counts as a success? Would you like me to ask all my questions in one go?
Scott, I'm just going to ask Jess to respond. I didn't catch all of it, but I think she did. So,
yeah, thank you. I think what you were asking, Councillor, is what are the specific metrics and when will the numbers be attached? So we're doing a piece of work at the moment through the kind of corporate performance team to look at all of our metrics and key performance indicators that we have at the moment, to see which ones are still relevant to the metrics in this plan, and to work out the kind of reporting data that we'll be collecting alongside the kind of actions, if you like. So there's sort of softer reporting on the actions being taken, and then the numbers being attached, and those will be reported on the against the timeline that's set out in this report.
So we can look forward to it at a later date. I'll take it. The second question, if that's okay to go ahead. When it comes to complaint handling,
Scott, if you've got more than one, if you just want to reel them all off, so is it 2 or 3? Yeah, just reel them all off, and we'll come back to all of them.
Super, no problem at all. When it comes to complaint handling, you say there'll be no marking of your own homework. I just wondered if you could expand on exactly what that meant in literal terms. Also, the plan outlines the idea, the push forward to build 3,000 council homes by 2031. Obviously, it's quite a laudable aim and something we should all look to do. But I was just wondering if you thought it was realistic, considering the conditions in terms of the high interest rates and the general economic conditions. That's all my questions for this section.
Thanks, Scott. I mean, I can just start off on that. In terms of the 3,000 council homes, there's a very, very developed business plan attached to that. So we are confident as it stands. Could that be subject to change? Of course, because that's the nature of the beast. But at this present moment in time, we are fully confident that our business plan will enable us to build 3,000 council homes over the course of 10 years. If you want further detail, I'm sure David. Robbie's not obviously here, but David can come in. But the short answer is fully confident. Did you want David to come in? And David, if I don't know if you want to just say something briefly on that.
Yeah, thanks, Leader. I think you've made the absolutely key points. The only thing I would add to that is that we do have a very well progressed sort of identification of sites that sits underneath that 3,000 homes target. So all of the sites are actually identified. You know, a large number have planning permission, a large number have started on site, and of course we've now got a good number of completions coming through. So this is not sort of relying on windfall sites. These are identified sites.
Thank you. And Jess, did you want to come in on the complaints?
Yes, so we are carrying out a sort of root and branch review of our complaints process, which is what's the kind of commitment that's set out in the corporate delivery plan. And I suppose that comment about no marking of our own homework is really effectively that there needs to be really strong quality assurance of responses that are given. And really in line with the Haringey deal, we want to be clear that we are learning from mistakes, that we're engaging with residents and listening to them and learning from what they're telling us. But if so it's about reviewing the responses that come back from services, perhaps as an initial response, and really providing challenge and quality assurance at senior level that really asks the question, is that a good enough response for the resident, and does it resolve the matter that they've raised? So it's about putting really robust procedures in how we manage our complaints, ensuring that quality assurance and ensuring that we're listening to what residents are telling us.
I'll just come back on that.
Yes, go ahead.
Obviously, the phrase itself is more to do with the idea of someone externally looking over what the council's doing. So I was just wondering if there was any plans to do that.
Yeah, I suppose at a sort of wider level, we are keen to learn from external perspectives. We've had a number of sort of peer reviews where we've invited people in from outside. The Chief Executive and I have also met the local government ombudsman to talk to them about our plans. So absolutely on a broad at a broad level, we're absolutely open to others looking at it. But I suppose internally, it's also about ensuring that it's not just services themselves setting out their responses. It's ensuring that there's a clear challenge to that process internally, but from outside of the original service.
Thank you, Jess. Thank you, Scott. So if we can move to the resolution, which is to approve the recommendations as set out at page 22. Are we agreed? Agreed. Thank you. Item 10, Council House Energy Action Plan. Councillor Carlin.
Sorry, Leader. Can I just declare an interest because I'm a leaseholder at Holmes Fangis? Sorry, the mics didn't work previously.
Okay, right.
Is that all right, Fiona, to stay or? I don't believe. A straight answer would be helpful, Councillor Carter. I don't believe so. If it does, then I just won't participate in the conversation.
You can remain in the room if it doesn't affect you personally. Thank you. Okay, Councillor Carlin, if you can introduce the report.
I'm very pleased to bring this action plan to Cabinet this evening. Our council housing stock is fairly old, with a current average EPC rating of C, but with about a third of our properties with an EPC rating of D or below. Our borough's homes make up 50% of the borough's total emissions, with council homes contributing 7 to 8% of the total. In order to deliver on our net zero carbon ambition by 2041, to improve the health and well-being of our residents, and to reduce energy bills for our council tenants, we need to improve the energy efficiency of our housing stock. This action plan sets out a clear set of measures, deliverable actions, and anticipated costs for every home, enabling us to start the decarbonisation of our social housing. The key principles of the Energy Action Plan are as follows. Firstly, we will do whole house retrofit plans with a fabric first approach. This means upgrading the fabric of the property to reduce heat demand before fitting low carbon heating systems and on-site renewables such as solar panels. We will do the worst properties first. The majority of the retrofit works will be done within our major works programme, which will be prioritised based on stock surveys to identify the properties needing the most work. However, separate arrangements will be put in place to deliver out-of-sequence works to the poorest performing stock that cannot wait for the major works programme. Also, to align with wider borough strategic, we will align with wider borough strategic objectives to deliver maximum impact. So, for example, aligning it with something such as our decentralized energy network that we're putting in. We will phase out the installation of gas boilers after 2026, replacing them with decarbonized heating systems such as air source heat pumps. These can be electricity intensive, so homes need to be well insulated before they're put in. We will ensure that we have compliance with government retrofit standards and Trustmark to ensure we are eligible for government funding streams. We will work with our tenants to co-design before, during and after the works, making sure that they are fully involved in the retrofit programme. We will support innovation by reviewing emerging technologies, although these may need further external funding if they are expensive, such as Energy Sprong. And we will use the HRA to leverage additional funding, external funding, and to secure value for money. Within the current 10-year major works plan, 101 million has been allocated to fund the retrofit works. This funding will also be used to leverage in the additional government funding, and the action plan will place us in a good position to secure funding that does become available. The initial programme will start with 289 homes. There will be those on the Coldfall estate in N10 in Fortis Green, and also on Broadwater Farm as part of the major works programme. There are also additional properties of which there are details on page 9 of the report. This is a great step forward for Haringey. We are, and something we can be really proud of, we are going to be retrofitting our council homes and bringing them up to the best possible standards. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Carlin. Any questions from the Cabinet? Councillor Hagata.
Maybe just more a comment, just to underline the scale of the ambition of this project. It's definitely one of the most ambitious retrofit programs in the country in terms of making all of our rented council houses, homes, energy efficient by 2035. We've pledged 100 million towards this, which I think as well is one of probably potentially the most ambitious pledge of council's own money towards this. This is underlining our commitment to this. And I'd just like to say it also obviously, like with all things to do with climate change, has co-benefits such as tackling energy poverty with lower income families, improving air quality within homes, as well as dovetailing with our drive to improve skills locally and to invest in the local supply chain and the economy. So there's a huge amount of benefits here. It's a hugely ambitious program, and it's already got a plan in terms of the first several hundred homes. So it's not pie in the sky. This is real and material. Thanks.
Thank you, Mike. Any other questions? No. Councillor Emery. We can't hear you. I think you're on mute.
There. Apologies for that. My bad. Sorry, I've got 3 questions. Why are 60 of the properties on the Coldfall estate not eligible for funding, and how will they be paid for? Will the costs to leaseholders be capped, and will there be loans available, and what notice will be available for those loans? And lastly, the report says that where leaseholders wish to install energy-saving measures outside of the council retrofit programme, the council will promote and encourage leaseholders to upgrade their properties. Just wondering what form that promotion and encouragement will take. Happy to repeat those if needed.
We just, I think, so we've got Joe Baker here and Rob and Joe, are you going to take the questions?
Yeah.
Okay.
So some of the houses on Coleful that are not eligible for the funding is because of the EPC ratings of them, so they're already quite a good standard. So therefore, we'll do works to support the overall programme rather than specifically for those householders. Dealing with the leaseholders, we're working with the housing services team who are looking at the leaseholders and the way that we work with them to ensure that there is a similar service to all factions, and we need to make sure that we align with that process. And the final question is about the advice and support. So we'll have signposting to companies and suppliers such as the Retrofit Works Cooperative, which we already do have, and we're looking at the moment at planning advice notes and things like that, which will enable people to make informed choices around it. Doing a whole house retrofit is very complex and it can put people off. We want to make it as easy as possible so that they feel empowered to make the right choices.
Is it possible to get a bit more feedback on the second question off someone else, perhaps?
Sorry, just remind us, Scott, the second question.
To do with capping on the cost to leaseholders. So just wondering if there'd be loans available, what kind of notice period and if anything can be done to do with that.
Haringey Council has an extremely generous programme for leaseholders who are facing costs for major works. It's among the most generous available from any local authority. We offer interest-free loans. We offer interest-free charges on the property. What we would be doing by retrofitting these homes is increasing the value of the properties by probably quite considerable amount. We'll also be reducing vastly the energy usage of the properties. Coleful Estate was chosen specifically because the homes on the estate have such poor insulation currently. So this will be of great benefit to leaseholders and to tenants alike. But as a council, we have very, very generous, extremely generous payment options for leaseholders facing major work bills.
Thank you. So if there's no other questions, if we can go to the resolution, which is to approve the recommendations as set out at page 124. Are we all agreed? Agreed. Okay. So item 11, which is the extension to Haringey Street Lighting Works contract. Councillor Chamwani, if you can introduce.
Thank you, Leader. Colleagues, in Haringey we have over 18,000 streetlights. That includes on our public highways, our housing estates and our parks. About 90% of them have now moved on to being LEDs, and we're now focusing on our parks and the rest of our estates and a few historical lights that are around that Highgate and other areas. It's a great achievement. We've reduced our carbon reduction, and we've also, this has all taken place during COVID. We're now moving also on to additional lights and making sure that we fulfill our manifesto commitment and moving towards having a full central management system. Sorry, every acronym in the council is CMS and I forget which one's which. A central management system to manage all of our lights so that we move into the 21st century. This is a request to extend the current contract. We said in 2019 that it was a 4-year contract with a +2 and a +2. So we're asking for the first +2. That's so we're asking for the +2 to make it 6 years. In 5.1, it covers all of the other alternatives that we considered, and in 0.7, it also covers the finances that the risk to finances if we were to go back out onto the open market. I'll leave my comments there, Leader, and take any questions.
Thank you. Questions? No, now, I don't believe Councillor Emery's indicated on this item, or have you?
I do.
You
I do on
have,
this
sorry,
one.
it wasn't on my list, but please go ahead.
Sorry about that. That's probably one of our problems. From anecdotal evidence, the number of instances where lights were reported as not working multiple times over many months, and it took a lot of chasing to try and get those fixed. Given the report states that Marlborough's performance has recently exceeded their KPIs, I was just wondering if this was due to a bottleneck with the council's referral to Marlborough, or was there some other reason for it? Obviously, again, I say anecdotal evidence, so it's not as perfect, but
Is that your only question, Councillor Emery? Okay, so just to give you the autonomy of a lamp, a street light, the council is responsible for any faults that are in the column and any faults that with the bulb. If there is a fault with the electrical supply, then we have to get to UK Power Network. The service level agreement with UK Power Network, which is not something the council holds, but it's more at central government level, is 28 days to attend. So that's probably why you're seeing a delay. Remember, that's 28 days to attend. Then they need to sort out the fault, and it might be a road closure. Just to put that into perspective, the lights outside my own property failed, and it took 2 power cuts for our house and 9 months. So I could have had a baby at that time as well before we finally got it fixed. What I will say, though, is it's really hard sometimes to find out what the source of the problem is. And in that scenario, somebody had decided to divert the electricity that should have been going to those streetlights to build a cannabis factory. So normally there are different reasons why this happens, but if it is power failure, then we can only rely on UK Power Network. Councils can't touch the national grid. I hope that helps to answer the question.
just one slight follow-up, if that's okay.
You did say no, but I'll let the leader make that decision.
Yeah, I'm feeling generous tonight, so go ahead.
It's a follow-up on the specific question. Would you say you're happy with the performance of the company that you brought in to do it?
I think to change 90% or even, we've only got 40 streetlights in our on our roads that have to be converted from 14,500 to LED. To do that over COVID, I think it's been an amazing, fantastic achievement. To also start putting on additional lights has also been great. So I don't have any real kind of concerns. The report wouldn't have praised them so much if I did, because obviously I've had to sign off the report. But I do think that has been a seamless, amazing achievement to go to LED for that quantity over the COVID period, and also over Brexit, where staff had been lost, and also having to struggle with all the materials. I think it's been an amazing achievement. So yes, I do.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Chanwani. So if there's no more questions, if we can go to the resolution, which is to approve the recommendations as set out at pages 74 to 75. Are we all agreed? Agreed, thank you. So item 12, which is the Bruce Grove Public Conveniences refurbishment works. Councillor Gordon.
Thank you, Chair. The item on the agenda is about the Bruce Grove Public Conveniences. Actually, it's sort of a strange title, because what we're hoping to do with this is this will become a cafe, and the project's aims is to refurbish a grade 2 listed building and turn it, as I say, into a cafe and a noteworthy place. It's been out of use for 40 years, and it's sort of been a sort of long-running sore for local residents to make sure this building is brought back into use. It is a sort of landmark building. It's very, very nice building, but obviously with a building of that age, there is enormous problems, and certainly we have had problems, which is why I've had to come back on more than one occasion to the Cabinet about this particular project. the cafe will have a social value operator with all of the rights and obligations that we will attach to that that operator. It will, once we've finished the refurbishment, it will mean that we can remove this building from the Historic England's Heritage at Risk register. So those were the sort of reasons behind us sort of sticking with this project. It's sort of part of the general project in Bruce Grove. We consider Bruce Grove to be an important town centre. And we've been doing work with business shop fronts, with business forecourts, and there has been an increase in the number of businesses opening in Bruce Grove, which I think is very important for the local economy in particular. So we've got some really good examples. There's a Turkish cafe that is opened recently there, and there's a Somalian cafe that has opened, and this is all very welcome, as well as businesses like Roller Nation and so on. That is important, and not forgetting San Marco, the fantastic pizza place if people want to go and have a really wonderful pizza there. So it's an important town centre area for us, and we've managed to bring together other funding to enliven the public realm in that area. So, for example, just very, very soon, in the next few weeks, you will see the addition of a mosaic underneath the railway bridge there, which will celebrate Walter Tull, Priscilla Wakefield, Luke Howard, Black Lives Matter, and so on in that piece of artwork, which has been designed with local residents as well. So there's a lot going on in that area, and this is part of that work. Obviously, we've incurred a number of difficulties to do with being so close to the railway line. We've had to discuss with Network Rail. There's been some really difficult technical issues, and we've had to work with Network Rail to get technical approvals. We've also uncovered heritage repair issues for which we have subsequently had to get listed building consents. So all of that has contributed to delays and to sort of a poor sequencing, if you like, in managing out the project. I'm going into that much detail because obviously we're coming back to the Cabinet to ask for additional funding to be approved of 473,943, which would make a total of just over 1.5 million for the project. However, we think that this is a worthwhile project. We think that local residents will want this to go ahead, and that we think that having made this decision, then we will be able to complete this by hopefully this summer. So, at August 2023, we will have another venue in that area, which will really enhance the local area. So I'd ask for a Cabinet's approval, but I'm happy to take questions.
Thank you, Councillor Gordon. Questions, Councillor Jogee?
Thanks, Chair. It's more of a reflection perhaps than a question, and I want to thank Councillor Gordon for the shout out she gave to a number of local businesses in that part of Tottenham. I was in San Marco on Sunday. I can testify to its culinary prowess. And notwithstanding the challenges, I just want to welcome these proposals, particularly from the angle of the jobs that will be created and the boost to the local economy. So we've seen the benefit of reclaiming historic buildings. Look at the toilets further up at the High Cross pub, I think it's called. So, it lends itself to some of the changes we've seen in this part of town, and I just wanted to make clear particularly the benefits of new jobs, which will help us tackle the unemployment challenge that continues to face us.
It's only a short response to that, but part of the requirements on the operator of the cafe will be about employing local people and so on. So we were building all of that into the lease that will be given. So And just to give a better shout out to some of those new businesses that have moved in. So it's Blue Gum Tree, is a Turkish cafe. There's, I think it's Mick Treats. It's like Mick Treats, MIK Treats, which is really nice sort of dessert parlour if you want to have an ice cream. I know it's not the weather for that sort of thing. And Gaddon's is the Somali cafe that has opened there. So there's some quite exciting developments in terms of small businesses opening up, enlivening that area, which we're really, really keen to promote. And I think this will be a very welcome addition to that, despite the fact that we've obviously having to ask for extra funds, which we don't want to do, but we think that given the stage that we're at, it's really important. So thank you for that.
Leader, we shouldn't forget Peppers and Spice if we're talking about Bruce Grove.
No, we certainly shouldn't. That's true. Any more questions from the Cabinet before I move to Councillor Emery? No. Okay, Councillor Emery.
Thank you. Retendering for the project was not set out as an option in the paper. I was just wondering if it was considered and how much would it cost? And then I've got a second question, just wondering why there have been delays in obtaining the technical approvals. And that's the 2 questions.
Sorry, could you just say, what was your first question? I didn't quite catch it.
Apologies. Retendering for the project was not set out as an option in the paper. Just wondering if this was considered and how much would it cost if possible?
I can see that Peter O'Brien has come onto the call. Could I ask about the whole tendering process, because I don't want to get it wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. Very happy to take it. Thanks for the question, Councillor. So the existing contractors were already in place. Everybody was really happy with their performance. It wasn't a question about the performance of the tenderers. This was about an issue that was uncovered during the process, which then resulted in additional approvals being required. In order to stop that restart, et cetera, with a third party, that introduces substantial risks, which would have inevitably added quite substantial additional cost to the project. So it would have been ruled out as part of the considering options. In terms of the approvals, Councillor, can you remind me the question in relation to the approvals?
It was to do with the delays to the technical approvals.
Yeah, so I don't mean to speak unkindly of Network Rail, but in the industry they are fairly famous for the glacial pace of movement in relation to approval. So unfortunately, in this particular circumstance, we fell victim to this particular issue again. It is unfortunately very frequently a high risk item that we have against any of our projects that require technical approvals from Network Rail. We do our best to use our connections and leverage to try and push that along. Unfortunately, in this case, it wasn't as successful as we would have wished. Just to note that at the point that we're now making this request and seeking to move forward, all of those approvals are now in place.
I did just want to add to that, you know, that despite all that, what I have been asking officers all the way through this project is to make sure that we haven't, you know, missed any opportunities to project manage this properly. I don't think we have. I think we have been hindered, and obviously in a climate of today's type of climate where any delay is going to increase your costs because costs have been soaring, then, you know, it is very, very problematic for us if we can't get consents on time, and we've got things that, you know, tend to push projects along. So I have asked officers to review the project management side of things, just in case there's anything that we have missed or could have done better, and we could have learned lessons from that. I'm not saying that that has been the case. I'm saying that we are aware that things like this cost more money. It's expenditure we don't want to use, and we are doubly ensuring that our project management, our project management is robust and up to spec. So I just wanted to add that in there, that we're not sort of taking this easily. We have been hindered by sort of events beyond our control, but we are making sure that we don't let things slip.
Thank you, Councillor Gordon. Thumbs up there from Councillor Emery. Okay, so if we can move to the resolution, which is to approve the recommendations as set out at page 175. Are we all in agreement? Okay, so item 13, which is the Decentralised Energy Network Programme decision to start design and build procurement. Councillor Casa.
Yeah, so this is a sort of prerequisite to being able to go ahead with the DEN programme. So the Cabinet has already approved the development of a full business case, which is underway, and this is a critical step in developing that business case to be able to speak to suppliers, be able to understand timeframes and costs. So it's a sort of necessary step, but obviously because this will be something that will create obligations. Ultimately, if we do go ahead with the full business case, we need Cabinet's approval to go ahead at this stage. Thanks.
Thank you. Questions? Councillor Emery.
Right. I'm going to warn you on this one because some of my questions are a bit more complicated on this, but obviously it's quite a complicated situation, so obviously to be expected. Has the council estimated its return on the £65 million investment required? Is this sunk outlay, or will the council seek revenue from the district energy network that would ultimately cover the investment cost? And if so, what is the expected time period for this cost to be recouped? There's 3 questions in total. And feel free to ask me to repeat these because they're quite detailed. How will the district energy network's connectivity to the NLWA incinerator and over the borough border systems be considered during the procurement process? And will consideration be given to a contract that could easily allow the infrastructure to be extended into neighbouring boroughs using Haringey system for future revenue streams? In other words, could we make money by pushing energy into different boroughs? If the installation is done via lots, do some suppliers utilise proprietary infrastructure or methods that mean that they could only deliver, maintain and run the infrastructure in their lot? Or do all suppliers generally use industry standards that could mean the supplier could take over another lot if there was some sort of failure? I'm happy to repeat those or try and re-explain those if that doesn't make any sense, but those are my 3 questions.
Okay, what I will do is definitely pass over to the experts in the room, Rob, who's been leading on these.
Thank you, Councillor, and thanks, Councillor, for the question. So firstly, a lot of the detail you're seeking is set out in the outline business case, which went to Cabinet in December 2021. So there's a lot of detail there on the bigger picture of DENS. So I'd point towards that in the first instance. In terms of the first question on the initial £65 million investment, so firstly, some funding was unlocked in that outline business case in December 2021 Cabinet, and that was predominantly funding from the government. So there was grant funding provided by the government under something called the Heat Network Investment Partnership (HNIP) programme from the Department for Business and Energy and Industrial Strategy. And then going forward, there is money in the council's capital programme already existing in the approved capital programme, and some of that money is funded from community infrastructure levy, which is money already in the bank from developers. So the council's approach is to absolutely maximise as much as it can from government grant funding and external sources, and from SIL rather than prioritising other sources of funding. So in that sense, it should be seen in that context. And in terms of, you asked about time period to recoup, there's details on that in the December 21 Cabinet and the overall time period for that, but it will take some time for this to sort of pay off itself, and that's set out in the previous Cabinet report. You asked about connection with the North London Waste Authority Energy from Waste facility and how that will be considered during procurement. I suppose the headline thing to say on that is the DEN network is not completely dependent on that, and having a DEN network is future-proofed to be able to connect to any other source of heat in the future. So it's not necessarily dependent on the NLWA's plans. It can connect to other sources of heat. So that is also considered in the December 2021 outline business case. But for the purposes of this procurement, the design and build will be based on what is already in the outline business case. And you asked about extending into neighbouring boroughs. And could some money be made from that? I mean, the DEN scheme, it's not about making money. That's not the primary objective in any way. But there is opportunity to connect to neighbouring boroughs to help enhance the benefits of decarbonisation, not just in Haringey, but beyond. And in terms of larger suppliers sort of stepping in if a smaller supplier fails to deliver over a lot, the full details of this will be looked at, but we feel like we have had some good procurement input into this to make sure that there are mitigations if there are any issues with suppliers later on. So we feel like the procurement framework for such a significant amount of money is robust to be able to deal if there is failure, and actually primarily to avoid any failure in the first place, to make sure that is properly managed. So hopefully that helps address the questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Rob.
Thank you, Councillor Emery. Thanks, Rob. So the decision for this will be taken after exempt information on item 18. So if we can move to item 14, which is minutes of other bodies, could we note the minutes of the other bodies, please? Item 15, significant and delegated actions. There are none to vote. Item 16, new items of urgent business. There are no items of urgent business. So if I can move to 17, which is the exclusion of the press and public. So we will now consider item 18, which contains exempt information in relation to item 13. So can I move that I don't think we've got press here tonight, but can I move that the press and public be excluded from the remainder of the meeting to consider this exempt information as defined under paragraphs 3 and 5, part 1, Schedule 12A of the Local Government Act 1972. Can we all agree this, please? Thank you. So we're now going to close the public section of the meeting.